What's up, guys? It's Crash, and I'm a little bit late to the Battlefield news, which is unlike me, but I want to talk about this anyway because it's really big and has implications for what we might expect with Battlefield 2025 and some ominous warnings from an ex-DICE developer that's worked on the game and been there in the past, and kind of summarizes the fall of DICE with everyone leaving from Battlefield 3 and 4, what is there now, how they're trying to rebuild it, and give some warning about the new leadership that, as you guys know, with like Byron Bede and Vincent Pella, there's some Call of Duty DNA in there in the leadership, and want to talk about it. And essentially what I thought we could do is what I like to do here is go through everything, hear from you down below. We'll read through it together. Let's put on some 4K Battlefield 5 peak Frostbite. In my opinion, I went back and played some to get some gameplay. I can't control the recoil on the Sturmgewehr 1.5 anymore, so I learned that. And let's listen to some lo-fi music and get into this stuff. I just want to read through it and kind of react to it as we go, and definitely invite you guys down below to type in and sound off what you think of what all this means, because a lot of people are saying this is the last chance for Battlefield, and we'll get into it. So let's go ahead and get right going. The Battlefield section from the EA investors call has started to generate sparks of hype for the new game. It'll certainly be different because 98% of the people who made the previous Battlefield games have left EA. Let me explain how DICE imploded and this new crew is trying to build things back up. Now, this is from the ex-developer. 98% seems like a high category when you still talk about the other studios. You have Criterion, Ripple Effect, and all that are working on that as well. Some of those studios have worked on previous titles. So the 98% new people, I wonder where that cutoff is, because even some of the past titles had a lot of new folks on certain teams. I digress. He went on to say, to understand today, let's first look back when DICE was acquired by EA. At the time, DICE's CEO was a guy named Patrick Soderlund. He orchestrated the acquisition and was rewarded with a big paycheck and promoted to head of all EA game studios worldwide. Soderlund ran EA Studios out of the DICE office in Stockholm for 14 years. He was DICE's guy and a favored, protected at the studio within EA studio system. Early on, he was more involved in the recruiting and creative decisions linked to DICE and older Battlefield games. So we'll go on to talk about how certain developers or certain heads of the studio were able to kind of shield the crap flowing downhill from EA, and some of them kind of just got micromanaged to death. EA is set up with a central HQ in San Francisco. The game studios spread all over the world. Studios survive by keeping Central EA out of their business. Studios fall apart when studio leadership can't stop Central EA from meddling in creative, tech, and business decisions. We've heard that time and time again. I've interviewed an ex-developer on my podcast. Ex-developers always say this, and it kind of goes without saying. All EA cares about is shareholders, and whenever they kind of shoehorn that stuff into the game where it doesn't belong, you get 2042. So he goes on to say, strong EA leaders protect their studios and the weak ones get micromanaged to death. This is the reason why so many of EA studios have fallen apart. He talks about BioWare, Criterion, Maxis, PopCap. DICE has survived longer than most because Soderlund's favor protected them from EA's more intrusive meddling. It also helps that from DICE's acquisition in 2005 through 2016, DICE was putting out bangers like BF2, Bad Company 2, BF3, BF4, and BF1. I'll try not to tear up when I read those titles. Consistently earning tons of money makes it easier for the EA studio to tell the rest of EA to go away. DICE's leadership change in 2016 is where problems started, and we can see that with kind of the public reaction to all these games as well. And you guys know that it would be easier for DICE to say, hey, we're putting out these bangers, tons of people are playing them, tons of people are loving them, let us handle it. EA, at that point, if you're making them money, they got to be like, okay, do you know? The DICE GM Patrick Bach, who was the EP on Battlefield 3 and general manager during BF4, left DICE. Publicly, there was a mutual parting with Soderlund, wishing Bach well on future endeavors within the studio. There are rumors that Bach was kicked out due to inappropriate behavior. We don't know that for sure. Bach was the last pre-acquisition employee to lead DICE. Soderlund's new pick for GM was Oscar Gabrielson, the young charismatic founder of Uprise, an Uppsala-based studio acquired by EA and most notable for building Battlelog. Like Soderlund, Oscar was a founder who successfully sold out to EA. Oscar took over while Star Wars Battlefront 2 was well into development. Neither he nor Soderlund recognized the game's design flaws that ultimately led to its incredibly controversial launch. You guys remember the loot box problem with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Since Oscar was new, Soderlund was able to shift the blame to Bach and eat some of the responsibility directly. Very interesting. I also would contend that those times, the Battlefield 5 you see behind me and also Star Wars Battlefront 2, were like peak Frostbite. So if we could bring that version of Frostbite back, reskin it modern, we'd be 90% of the way to an awesome game. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was the most serious monetary hit to Soderlund and DICE's credibility. As DICE rallied to work on Battlefield 5, Soderlund took a more direct role, overseeing the game's vision and execution. This happened while BioWare was filing Mass Effect Andromeda. Andromeda launched in 2017 to embarrassing reviews and bad sales. The BioWare's leadership credibility got hit, and Soderlund has now overseen 2 embarrassing launches in 2 years. He doubled down on personally directing Battlefield 5 to ensure it would be just as big as Battlefield 1's record-setting launch. You guys remember, where were you when you saw the Battlefield 1 launch trailer, man? I still watch that sometimes to get hyped up. In 2018, Soderlund regularly reviewed playtests and tech demos, pulling producers and designers into his office to lecture them on how to build the game the right way. Gameplay physicality, the visceral sense of being physically impacted by the chaos around you, was one of his biggest mandates. The Battlefield 5 team was sent into a physicality push to update the game's production value to create a stronger sense of realism. This push took the resources away from creating the critical path content needed to finish the game. The aspects of physicality focus are on full display in Battlefield 5's hated non-traditional reveal trailer. The trailer also revealed the previous unaddressed disconnect between Battlefield 5's World War II setting and the game's wacky monetized cosmetics. We all remember how sad that was. And honestly, man, it is such a shame. Going back to play Battlefield 5 mechanically, and I talk about like movement, the attrition system, I could take it or leave it, but like the movement and all that stuff and how the game looks and how it is optimized feels so good. And it's such a shame some of these decisions were shoehorned in by apparently and allegedly Oscar Gabrielson about this stuff, because it would have been great if it would have been done correctly with the Frostbite and the mechanical foundation that it had. It would have been awesome. So it's important to remember, he goes on to say that Battlefield 5 was the first Battlefield game to launch after EA's pivot to live service games. DICE was told they could no longer sell DLC packs, monetizing only via non-gameplay impacting cosmetics after Star Wars Battlefront 2's controversy. DICE was afraid of live service games. All of us want premium back, to be honest, many of us. After fans rejected the Battlefield 5 reveal trailer, Soderlund gutted the wild outfits in favor of historically accurate but bland cosmetics. He also doubled down on the physicality features, trying to position BFV as a beautiful, realistic return to World War II. At the end of 2018, Battlefield 5 missed its ship date by a month and ultimately shipped a classic unfinished. We'll fix this with the live service game. Pre-orders were bad because the exclusive cosmetics were ugly and overall sales were poor. Battlefield 5 became the worst-selling mainline franchise game. 3 flops in 3 years was enough for EA CEO Andrew Wilson, and Soderlund left EA right before the Battlefield 5 launch and shortly founded Embark Studios. DICE's internal protector and Oscar Senpai had left the building. Oscar dodged blame by saying Soderlund had been overruling the studio during Battlefield 5's dev. We get some inside details about kind of the dynamic between leadership. It's pretty crazy. EA cares about short-term shareholder value. BFV's miss put the company fiscal year in danger. EA's last 2 chances were Anthem from BioWare, and a small side project from Respawn called Apex Legends. Apex saved EA's year, and Respawn got instant cred with Soderlund's replacement, Laura Miele. You guys remember Miele. Battlefield 2042 is way ahead of schedule, guys. Now that Soderlund has a brand new studio 15 minutes from DICE, he started poaching talent. He got DICE as head of content art, head of operations, head of R&D, and one of their senior creative directors. Other senior leaders also saw this as a good time to leave, going to places like Ubi and ABK. The new Embark leadership then started hiring their former teams, so definitely poaching and headhunting, it sounds like. Pulling over tons of artists, game and engine devs, and operations folks. It's worth noting that Embark did not get designers and producers from Battlefield. Soderlund's meddling in Battlefield 5 created bad blood within the core BF team. Now, DICE is reeling from the talent attrition and reduced budget. Vince Zampella and Respawn are now top dogs in EA's non-sports portfolio, and Vince has Laura Miele's ear. Battlefront 3's gets canceled, and DICE LA is moved under Vince to become an Apex content factory. Battlefront 3, excuse me. You guys remember that when Battlefront 3 got canceled and is just full in on Apex. DICE is told to focus on Battlefield 5's live service, while Battlefield Brain Trust designs the next big game, free from Soderlund's intrusive oversight. The remaining old school Battlefield crew delivers Battlefield 5's War in the Pacific, while the newer guys iterate on what will become Battlefield 2042. And it's so unfortunate, just some of my insight, Battlefield 5's War in the Pacific trailer was awesome, man. It really felt like a turning point in the game when they dropped that War in the Pacific trailer. It felt so awesome, like that game was going to turn around and take off. And you guys know they canceled it in lieu of Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 2042 launched in 2021 and underperformed versus EA's expectations. There are many reasons it underperformed. He said, this developer said I could write another long post about this, which I would enjoy reading. But fundamentally, DICE failed to align the game's contents with what their audience wanted. 2042 also suffered from game engine and technical challenges linked to simultaneous development for Gen 4 and Gen 5 consoles. We talked about that on the channel after that. The symptoms of Embark induced brain drain. Regardless, 2042 was DICE and Oscar's final chance. Once it failed to deliver, EA absolutely cleaned house. The business people at EA have always looked longingly at Call of Duty and gazillions of dollars it makes annually. Then they look at Battlefield and ask, why can't you be more like that? This is where we get into the sad, or the scary stuff, the ominous stuff. Battlefield 2042's performance gave Vince Zampella and Laura Miele their dream opportunity to turn BF into COD. In 2021, Oscar was asked to leave. He was replaced as DICE GM by Rebecca Coutaz, former Ubisoft GM. At the same time, DICE hired COD's general manager, Byron Bede, to join EA as the Battlefield GM. Control of Battlefield was transferred to Byron in LA, and DICE was told they'd join a group of Battlefield studios. EA also hired Marcus Leto to build a new studio in Seattle called Ridgeline. The plan was for Ripple Effect in LA, DICE and Ridgeline to build a Battlefield like Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer build COD. Industrial Toys would make Battlefield Mobile. The loss of franchise control, COD conversion plan, and Bede and Leto's attitude towards DICE drove the remaining old guard Battlefield devs. Alex Rundall and the previous head of BF went to Embark, and a large chunk of Battlefield creative and production staff formed TTK Games in Stockholm. We are very interested in what TTK Games is going for over there in Stockholm with Mr. Battlefield at the helm. We'll keep an eye on that on the channel as well. The pandemic and our wild global economy seem to have negatively impacted the original COD conversion plan. Industrial Toys was closed in 2023, as with their version of Battlefield Mobile. You guys remember when that was canceled? And then Ridgeline never opened post-pandemic, and Marcus Leto seems to have left EA in 2024 on bad terms. You guys remember his tweet where he said he doesn't have anything positive to say, so he's just going to leave and feels bad for his team. And they closed Ridgeline essentially before it even ever opened. As of now, it appears the new DICE, Ripple Effect, Criterion, and Motive are the Battlefield dev group. Side note, he says Criterion is here because they had similar meltdown after shipping shipping multiple Met Need for Speed games. The Battlefield game they are making will probably come out in October of this year. I haven't worked there since the pivot to full Criterion and Motive. I do think it's interesting that the 4 studios are splitting up work based on content areas and not each building their own game like the COD studios do. The goal is a new Battlefield game every single year. I think EA has a roadmap to achieve this, but we won't see the next game in 2026. If Bede sticks to his vision, we will get, here's the meat and potatoes. Bede wants there to be a full price main game with limited single player, seasons, battle pass, and live service slop, and a free to play mode like Warzone. That stuff sounds ultra predictable from EA. I still think this is me talking. I still think a battle royale could be really good. I think Firestorm was really good and got screwed because it was behind a paywall and dropped at the same time as free to play Apex Legends. I think it was mechanically really good. And the full price main game with limited single player, that's what we can expect. Seasons, battle pass, that is here to stay for the foreseeable future. I don't see anything crazy there. Wild and Crazy, it goes on to say, Wild and Crazy monetized cosmetic content is the ultimate goal, and they'll push that towards the player base as fast as they can without generating too much negative sentiment. Pay for the game every year and pay for the battle pass and pay for skins. It really does sound like, to no one's surprise, that they are going for the Call of Duty skin economy, which I hate because it leads to less maps and just a bunch of crazy skins, and it gets out of control. I bet Battlefield Mobile is on the roadmap, but not this year. They believe they need to repair the brand's reputation by focusing on core gameplay that people want. This means a modern day setting in Conquest 24/7. They'll also drop 2042's operators and return to soldier classes. That's great news. The most experimental feature I knew about was an idea to have an AI commander. not ChatGPT or anything, just a traditional heuristic based thing that automatically gives squads orders during matches. Near flag being taken, go defend the flag. Near another squad, link up and attack together. So if you're a Battlefield fan, temper your expectations. This is a new era of the game made by a completely new group of people following a new philosophy. Whether that's good or bad depends on your personal outlook. TTK Games is where most of the old Battlefield talent now works. I know what they're making, but haven't played it. I can't speak on how close or far it is from a spiritual successor. If you know Embark, you've probably tried the finals, beautiful production value, and BF-like destruction. We also know that Arc Raiders is coming down the pipeline from them as well. EA leadership, that is to say Wilson, Miele, Bede, and Zempel, all of them are corpos through and through. They want to extract maximum revenue from their players and drive up shareholder value. They make games to make money, not the reverse. If you read till the end, yeah, we did. You're welcome. But what is crazy is, you could take this to be like a disgruntled employee or even somebody that just wants clout, but like the stuff is there. Like there's too many details for this not to be an actual former employee. And then the current lead producer goes on to comment on this, which I think was really crazy that I didn't see in a lot of the news stories. Having been a part of, he goes on to say, David Sirlin, lead producer of DICE, having been part of, well, almost all of that storyline, third time's a charm, he says, and currently working on the next one makes this an interesting thread to say the least. Not far off the mark in the history side here, but cause and effect is all over the place. So what it sounds like he's saying is, yeah, that's kind of how things went in the history, but typically kind of trying to save face here, saying that a lot of the things you're talking about are just like situational things that happened. And obviously he's not going to admit that they just want to make mainline games turn this closer and closer to Call of Duty. And what do I think of all this? It really sounds like things are as predicted. This sounds so predictable that you have, Vince Zampella, Byron Bede, people from Ubisoft now, you had Marcus Leto, you have all these other games. It's obvious with the hires that EA has made that they want Battlefield to be more like other games because they want the success, the monetary success that other games have had. So you have to say, you basically at this point as Battlefield fans, we have to hope that they understand to make money from Battlefield, you have to have a lot of people playing it. You have to make a good Battlefield game, and there is a place for that in today's FPS landscape. To be able to do that, they need to make it a core Battlefield game that we want, that is good, the recipe is out there. And if the core Battlefield fans are happy, they're going to go on X, they're going to go on Blue Sky, they're going to go on Reddit, and they're going to talk about how good the game is. You're going to have high baseline players. More people are going to come into it. If you do a good job of making a free-to-play like Battle Royale or extraction shooter that people can get their toes wet and experience the destruction, the gameplay, the class gameplay, the teamwork, the vehicle gameplay, all that combined arm stuff that does come with Battlefield, that works smooth, that looks good, then you actually have a shot to bring more people into the franchise. If you have more people, they're going to buy skins and stuff. I really think looking at this overall, it is unfortunate that it kind of means that that we see that the old guard has left DICE. That has been the case for the last several titles, and those days could be gone of having the good old traditional gritty boots on the ground Battlefield, grounded in immersive games. You can't tell me that Battlefield 1 was not, love or hate how it played or the time setting. You can't tell me that Battlefield 1, especially for the time, was not one of the most immersive games that you've ever played in your life. And it's sad to say that maybe some of those times are probably gone. And either way you look at it, man, with how Call of Duty has found success, or how Apex has found success, even within EA, and how Fortnite has done with skins, the skin economy, the battle pass system makes too much money, and it's here to stay for a long time. Despite old heads like me wishing, hey man, I'd pay an extra $24 for a year of premium content to know that I get 4 brand new awesome maps every single season. Every 3 months I get 4 awesome new maps. I'll pay some money for that, but I'm not going to really buy any Hello Kitty or Uwu skins for my Battlefield character. But I feel like at this point in my life, I am getting to be the vast minority of opinion holders in these games. So they definitely make money from this stuff, so it's here to stay. We have some hope still for this type of game with TTK Games. They were mentioned in here, as well as War Dogs is working on something over at Bulkhead, where Lassie, the former Battlefield creator, went to be the community manager over there. They're working on some kind of Battlefield type game as well. World War III was one of them that we hoped for. They are under new leadership and things are being worked on there behind the scenes. I wouldn't expect to see that go anywhere, but with Delta Force coming out, you guys can see it already is going the season skin economy. This one is just going to be a wait and see thing. We're on the precipice of hearing a lot more about Battlefield 2025, whatever they're going to be bringing for us. And it's going to be interesting to see it, to say the least, because on one hand, you got a lot of Call of Duty DNA. On the other hand, I can't think of a flop that Vince Zampella has come out with. So that's the other thing that you have kind of working for you. Guys, thank you for sticking with me through that whole thing. I couldn't think of any other way to get through it other than just go over it with you guys together. It was awesome for me to read through, kind of react to. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much. Please let me know in the comments what you think and what you want to see in this year's Battlefield title. It's almost time to start talking about it again, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.